live, we are live, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Talk Live. Sorry for that little delay there. But we are back, we are live here on IG and YouTube. And yes, I am side watching my Bills game. That's why I have the Bills shirt on with the MVP Josh Allen on him. But we need to play a little better because we are playing like garbage right now. And there's a good chance we may go 7-4 today. But we are on the way with Talk Talk Live. How you guys doing? How y'all feeling? Whether on playback, whether on live. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're gonna get into something really quick today. So we're not going to waste any more time because we are delayed in times as always. So thank you very much for your patience. If you're watching on Playmet, thank you for watching here on Talk Talk Live, sponsored by DunTalk.com. Again, do comment down below what you see before you hear. Now, it seems that my goodness, that's a sack. It seems that offensive line are just absolute trash. Okay. Anyways, let me get back and concentrate here. It seems that for something that happens every day, which is infidelity. Infidelity is a daily occurrence, a daily crime, no matter where you are in the world. And either we have fallen victim to it, or we have been the perpetrators of it. But it seems that in a certain state in the United States, being a perpetrator of infidelity, being one who is untrue to your partner, to your husband, to your wife, it seems that that is punishable by the courts. And we're going to get into this tonight as to how this is done and in what circumstances this is done. It was done in a quite sensational way. So let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. We're going back to our old friends here. Yes, and that is, hold on just a second. Oh, let me get my face up there. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me make sure. There we go. Bang. Sorry for that. With our old friends here, Law and Crime. Remember, Law and Crime did such a fantastic job with regards to the Diddy trial, and we are back with these gentlemen here. And hold on, just give me 1 second here, folks. Oh, 1 second here. Yes, indeed, and yes, indeed. So we're just going to follow along here on this here signal. Oh yes. Anyways, I'm gonna have to look for this here. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen, but we're gonna get into this right now. Uh, oh, there we go. Uh, oh my gosh. I don't know where to get this here. I'm gonna have to find this down from thing. But anyways, do like and subscribe and comment to what we're doing here tonight. So let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen, with our help of Law and Crime, who did such a great job on the Diddy trial. Can't go with this right now. Hopefully, if you can comment and if you are IG and YouTube here on Talk Talk Live, we can see you. So let's get into it. Hopefully, there will be no harangues as they were yesterday. But let's get into this here on Talk Talk Live. So. Law and Crime are going to report on this case, and this happens to come out of well. We'll reveal the jurisdiction in just a bit. Let's start this up on Talk Talk Live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Not gonna waste any more time, people. Time to go. Time to get this, and let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Talk Live.
Now, as we're talking about laws that you may not have heard of, here's a fun fact that you might not have heard of. Did you know that chips were cooked in tallow until the 1990s? See, that's when corporations, they switched to the cheap. I broke the bank. I'm not for 25%. I hadn't thought about it since then, and it was only now, when I hear about the story, that I remembered it. A few states recognize it. It's called alienation of affection, and you can also sue for something called, I don't think we have ever covered a lawsuit like this one before, where you have a very popular TikTok star who is being sued by a woman who claims that she essentially stole her husband from her. And believe it or not, in the law, there is an actual specific claim or claims you can sue for. I remember studying this in law school. I hadn't thought about it since then, and it was only now when I hear about the story that I remembered it. A few states recognize it. It's called alienation of affection, and you can also sue for something called criminal conversation, which is a claim here too. It's basically adultery. You can sue when someone has sexual intercourse with your spouse, and we're going to talk about this. This is a real.
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, there it is. It is true, as brought up by my man Jesse Weber here on Law and Crime. Yeah, you can sue for actual infidelity. You can sue for having sex with your spouse, having sex with your partner, if it's an established relationship, ladies and gentlemen. So one that's on the books. So let's get into this further with Jesse Weber.
Thing. It is a real thing in the state of North Carolina where this is happening. So, back in May of 2024, Akira Montague filed a $3.5 million lawsuit against viral TikTok star Brene Kennard. She's got over 274,000 followers on Instagram, nearly 3 million on TikTok. Talks about her life, get ready with me videos, doing product reviews, makeup lessons, and so forth.
Hey TikTok. So I have a couple things that I got from the TikTok shop that I want to show you guys. First up, this hydrating tint. If you don't want to wear a foundation, this would be great for you. If you've had this before, heard this brand, let me know.
And sometimes she appears with her husband, Tim.
Hi guys.
What's up, y'all? Hello?
We on here? Hey
What's
guys,
up, y'all?
it's Renee.
It's Tim.
And now, Brene and Tim have found themselves in Akira's legal crosshairs. Akira sued for something called alienation of affection. And basically, it's alleging, you are responsible for my marriage ending. In North Carolina, which is only one of a few states that recognize this, you have to prove there was a real affection, real love between two people in a marriage. There was clear proof that a third party intentionally interfered with that marriage, and that the love, the marriage, the affection, it was destroyed, meaning the love was, quote, alienated. Is that easy to prove? Is it easy to prove in this kind of case? And you know why we're talking about this right now? Because the trial just happened. We actually just got a verdict on how all of this played out. Plus, Brene represented herself during this trial. And before we even get into the trial, back in September, got to mention this, Brene was charged with cyberstalking after Akira filed a formal complaint against her, accusing the social media star of harassing her online, showing up places, a filing saying, quote, Kennard constantly mentions my name, as well as posts my name and answers questions pertaining to my personal life and pending cases. And there was also an allegation that Brene violated a restraining order that Akira took out on her. Now, Brene was released at the time on a $2,500 bond. But when we talk about bad blood, it should also be noted that just days before Akira filed her lawsuit against Brene, there was a warrant that was issued for Akira's arrest, that she was purportedly threatening Brene by allegedly saying, I will kill you, and I will beat your bleep, and I know where you stay. This is according to the warrant. So in that criminal case, by the way, prosecutors allowed for Akira's prosecution to be deferred in exchange for 12 months of unsupervised probation, and she had to complete anger management classes and have no contact with Brene. Bad, I know. So
let's just bring this into full focus here, guys. I'm gonna go to full screen here just to make sure that we get a full view of this here. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, here's the deal. Here's the deal. So in North Carolina, you can be charged with um, with the crime of causing an end to a relationship and through infidelity and you can be. Let me just get the cart before the horse. You can be charged for infidelity, and with that infidelity, causing the end of a relationship. And so, oh, those bills are taking on the chin today. So this is this has been on the books for years. I would say for the last half century to a century, where they try to preserve the sanctity, the institution of marriage. So therefore, if you uh, were the culprit in said infidelity. If you are the aggrieving, if you are the infidelee rather than the infideler, the infidel period, you could be sued upon through the tort of strict liability, and very few states have this. North Carolina, being the United States state where you can sue for infidelity, is one of the few states that allow for this. And during this matter, also you have different cross complaints with regards to different cross actions with regards to you know the violation of a restraining order, violation of threats between two parties. So again, these ladies don't like each other. However, the one lady, the TikToker that you saw tonight, she now has the estranged husband that the former lady, who I thought was, if you ask me, she was the better wife. Here, anyways, love is blind. Anyway, she is the one who is now suing lost for a lost marriage, instead of doing lost alimony, lost support from said husband, who is a TikToker, along with the lady who is being charged with being the infidelity with regards to the actual end of that brought about the end of a marriage. So let's get back into this, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that made a bit of sense to you. We're going back now here on Top Talk Live. Just give me 1 second. Oh, there we go. So yes, so we're getting back here on Top Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen, and we're gonna continue this. So let's get into it. Again, like, subscribe, comment on road to 1,000 subscribers.
Bring on an attorney who specializes in family law and divorces, Randy Kessler. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time. Have you ever handled an alienation of affection case, a criminal conversation?
Now remember, this lady here is the former wife of the gentleman in question here, the one who's involved with this lovers tug of war. Again, I thought she was the better looking lady, but again, love is blind. Let's go.
Case? I mean, is this common? I know it's only in a few states. Have you ever handled anything like this?
So, in a roundabout way, we certainly have. So, it's only in 5 or 6 states. I practice primarily in Georgia, where we don't have it, but we do have jury trials in Georgia. And so, a lot of times, what happens is my clients come in and say, "She caused my husband to leave me. I want to bring her in." So, we can't sue her in Georgia and in most states, but you can sue the spouse and say, "Listen, because you did this," and you can bring them in as witnesses, and you can make their life uncomfortable. But the short answer is no. Very rarely no states really have this except 5 or 6. And North Carolina being a close state to us, a lot of our clients say, "Well, what if I just move to North Carolina?" You can't do that after the fact, but it's something we think about and talk about a lot, and we get asked the question all the time.
And my understanding, these are kind of laws that originated back in the day when it was, men still considered women property, essentially. So there's a reason you don't see this across the country. But how difficult are these claims to prove? So if you look at alienation,
I don't know if it's due to property or if they want to preserve the sanctity of marriage and deterred those who wanted to break up relationships. I would say that was the reason why they created this law, is just to stop people from getting stop people from being involved in relationship from ending relationships through nefarious means. I think that so. In other words, preserve the sanctity of marriage. Let's continue.
affection, you have to prove that there was a genuine love, affection, that there was a deliberate interference by a third party. I guess criminal conversation, you just have to prove what? That there was an affair, that there was an actual sexual intercourse going on during the course of the marriage. How difficult is this to prove, and what do you do to prove it? How do you prove it? What kind of evidence is introduced in these kinds of cases?
So there's a whole bunch of evidence, but I'm going to take a break for 1 second. We've evolved from fault divorce. You were talking about at the beginning, these laws go way back to where you had to have a reason to get a divorce. You had to prove somebody was cheating. And now in almost every state, you can get a divorce because I want a divorce. So it makes it hard to reconcile I want a divorce with pointing the finger at somebody else. So that's just to get to your first point. But as far as how hard is it to prove these cases, It's hard. You mentioned two, right? There's the alienation of affections and the criminal conversation. As I understand criminal conversation, it's what we call a strict liability case. Like if you prove that it happened, there's liability, even if the person cheating with the spouse didn't know the spouse was married. So that's an interesting one in and of itself. The other one, the bigger one, the one that they're really traveling under, the alienation of affections, is my husband left me because she made him leave me. And it's hard because most people say your husband left you because he didn't like you, or your husband went with somebody else because the relationship wasn't there. It's very hard to blame somebody else as if your spouse was not a willing participant, right? But that's what they have to do. They have to prove that the other person knew there was a marriage, that the marriage still had some viability. There's still a chance the marriage could last. It doesn't have to be a perfect marriage, but some romance, and that it caused the divorce.
And
So there you go. There's a test with regards to this law that's happened that happens to be on the books in North Carolina. Again, which is it's a very difficult test to overcome, very difficult test to prove in court, and saying that there was a marriage in there was a marriage. A marriage uh, was basically dissolved through the activities of another, and that dissolution caused caused of undue hardship on said individual. So it's a strict liability case. So all you have to do is show that there was an established relationship, and if that established relationship was broken up by another's activities, be they sexual, be they emotional, then you can sue. You can sue the other party for the of loss of comforts that one receives through marriage. So again, something that's not in the books everywhere, but something that's on the books here. And one, very astute lawyer knew this was on the books and decided to carry this forward. But however, this is exclusive to North Carolina, as the lawyer stated. You can't just move to North Carolina and sue on that basis. So if you happen to be in Canada, if you happen to be in the UK, if you happen to be anywhere else, you can't exactly fly into that state unless the infidelity took place in that state. So it's a very high bar to overcome. So again, we're it's only for the very few, and that's for North Carolinians. Let's continue.
that is a key factor in this case that I want to get into because there's a difference of opinion when you hear what came out in trial. So first of all, how did all this come about? Well, Akira alleges in the complaint that Brene and Tim started making these social media videos, this content together, while he was still married to Akira, like cooking videos, and that Akira didn't know about any of this or didn't sign off on any of this, even going so far as to allege that Brene would post pictures of Tim and the children he had with Akira, and she claims they were having an affair, that Brene was flaunting this online, that she herself found out about this alleged affair from a video of the two of them together in January of 2024. But when you go to the trial, okay, there are different versions here of the relationship, the marriage, which becomes very important from a legal point of view. And by the way, a little preview of the trial, we would learn during the trial that Brene and Tim, they apparently dated in high school, that Brene's ex-husband testified that he found out the two were trying to get back together in December of 2023, even heard them being intimate in his house in January of 2024. And the complaint also claims that Akira and Brene at one point were friends, that Brene allegedly used information that she learned from Akira about Tim, about their marriage, that she used that to seduce Tim. Now, before I get into all of that, okay, Randy, first of all, $3.5 million that she's suing for in compensatory and punitive damages. And again, we'll talk about the trial and everything that happened there, but $3.5 million in compensatory and punitive damages. Your thoughts on that number, and how do you prove that?
Ooh,
Just before we go there, I mean, a lot. You know what? There's a lot that had to be taken place here within this relationship. Again, they used to, they used to date while the lady who in question who had the affair with the gentleman who was married, and behind her back they made TikTok videos, and they used to date in high school. So it was a rekindling of a relationship that happened previous to the marriage in question here, and a lot of the um, well, trade secrets that transpired that were relayed to the new woman, the how should I say this? Yes, the affair lady. Yes, for lack of a better word, I don't know. I'm escape. It's escaping me. The one who was who was the infidel in this whole this whole activity. She used it against this party here. So again, a lot of things going to and fro. A lot of a lot of this matter that has gone unrequited here. So again, it's truly a fascinating case here in that you know just be in the fact that you know trade secrets and prior relationships and knowledge of a marriage and the will to break it up have led us here where which has led us to a $3 million lawsuit. Yes, you heard it, $3 million she was asking for, and it is uh, where it would be scoffed at quite simply. Oh wow, let me see if the desktop audio is going on here. Can you hear? Okay, hopefully you can hear this. I can hear the mic. Oh, sorry, it was on mute. My bad. Anyways, sorry, I was just watching one. I was just watching one thing when it should have been another. Anyways, uh, so ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're dealing with here: $3 million lawsuits. I'll let the expert lawyer from Georgia further explain.
There's a lot there, and you had my mind working. I was listening to everything you were saying, Jesse, and talking about, I started to think, rape is a bad example, but the defense can be consent. Someone consented, and did she know about it? So there are all these defenses that are whirling through my lawyer brain. But the number, you asked me about the number. I don't know how you get to that number. One thing that lawyers always think about is collectability. Does it do a lot of good to bring a lawsuit if you can never collect it? And what's interesting here is this is one of those kind of cases where most clients, most plaintiffs don't really care as much about the number as the principle, right? They want to prove to the world that this lady caused my divorce. I'm not a bad wife. I didn't do anything wrong. It's because this outside person. I think the three million or 3.5 million, whatever she's seeking, it's got to be more of that. More of a, I want the world to know it's so bad that it's millions of dollars. So I don't know how else you quantify, you know, 3.5 was my relationship worth 3.5 million. My relationship might have been worth 100 million, or it might have been worth $10. I just don't know
But
how
it's
you put a
also
number.
pain and suffering, right? What you went through.
Yeah, but in a typical pain and suffering case, right? You know this. We have, how much is a lost arm worth? If you break your leg, what's the value of that? What about a damaged kidney? You can find ways to prove how much that shortens your life and the medical bills associated with it. And then you multiply the medical bills by three to get a pain and suffering number. I mean, there's just no real numbers game, no math in this. It's a matter of, how bad does this make you feel? And from a lawyer's point of view, it's a straight face test. What can I walk in front of a jury and say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this should be compensated to the tune of, and if I say $100 million, they're going to laugh. And if I say 100,000, they're not going to take me seriously. So $3.5 million sounds
Yeah.
like you know,
And when you're talking punitive,
And ladies and gentlemen, let it be known this is something that will only happen in very few states, but definitely in the United States. The United States is a very litigious country, and with very litigious jurisdictions such as North Carolina, in that you can sue for millions of dollars for an affair, and taking advantage of, I would say, an antiquated law that was left to preserve love and marriage and the sanctity of marriage and the institution of marriage. Again, as the good lawyer, as good counsel has said here, you know, it's you can't ask for too much, you can't ask for too little. You want it to be such that it is reasonable, yet it's not over overabundant or uh, or just too lavish or too ridiculous a sum to ask for. So again, 100 million is out of the question, but 3 million, they say that's right. But again, this is the United States where a lot of such suits are allowed to get to court, let alone be sued upon. Let's continue.
punitive damages, right? A way to punish the defendant for really bad, egregious acts. You know, you wonder in a case like this, if you're accusing somebody of stealing your husband and cheating, you know, you wonder if a jury would side or a judge would side. So I mentioned that this trial just happened and it just concluded at the Durham County Courthouse. And we're going to talk about how this all resolved. But Randy, first of all, Brene Kennard is representing or was representing herself. Were you surprised by that? And the first thing I thought about, look, if she communicates on social media in a way where she got this following, that's a useful skill in maybe getting a jury on her side, right? It was her personality, the way that she spoke, that got a lot of people to follow her. I wonder if that's useful and maybe not the worst idea for her to represent herself, even though you and I both know it's more advantageous to have a lawyer represent you.
Right. Well, I mean, there's that famous old saying, right? He who represents himself has a fool for a client. Because you just don't have the objectivity. You don't really have a chance to read the jury. And she could always testify, and she would testify, of course, on direct examination. But it's guts, it's gumption to say that I'm smart enough to be able to, convince this whole jury. But maybe that's what's in her mind. And she's got so many followers, and people like her and adore her that maybe she thinks that's what's going to happen. The one skill set that most people don't have, and most lawyers don't have, and I'm still trying to figure it out, is voir dire, right? Jury selection, because you're talking about what's going on in the jury's mind. You don't know what the background of each of these jurors are. What if one of these jurors sympathizes with one side or the other? What if they were the spouse that was cheated on? Or what if they were the paramour that broke up another marriage? You really got to figure out who's deciding this case. That's a hard skill to learn, especially for a non-lawyer.
No, that's a good point.
And that is true. And you'd think for a matter such as this, especially a $3 million lawsuit, that you would get a lawyer to handle this matter. You wouldn't exactly represent yourself. With so much at stake, it would be prudent of you to have some sort of legal counsel with some semblance of culpability and sheer knowledge of the law, and a counsel that would be able to represent you to the best of his abilities. with a higher standard being placed upon him, to represent yourself in such a serious and expensive lawsuit was, I think, foolhardy on the part of the plaintiff herself. Let's continue.
Okay, I'm going to get to the verdict, but a few points I want to mention. Now, as I mentioned, in order to prove alienation of affection, you have to show that there was a genuine, real love in the marriage. So Akira gets on the stand and testifies that there was love between her and Tim, that Tim wrote her love letters daily, that they had matching tattoos, that the relationship continued well past when Tim claimed it ended, with the two having sex regularly. And she expressed sadness on the stand that her children lost both of their parents in this whole ordeal, that her kids are on the wait list for therapy because they're, quote, going through a lot of behavioral changes. Her mother also testified that Akira and Tim were, quote, inseparable. There were texts that were apparently presented in court where Tim was planning a surprise birthday party for Akira. But then you have Tim's side of it, okay? And completely different. And Tim was called by Brene, by the way. Again, she was representing herself. He had a completely different view, that the two were more like, quote, roommates than deeply in love, even saying he was never in love with Akira, that he bought her a cheap engagement ring, that he didn't even get down on one knee when he proposed, that they were essentially in this weird living situation where they were forced to marry in order for them to stay at Tim's parents' place. He testified he never wrote those love notes, even testifying, quote, I can't even recall a time when we held hands. He testified that they fought all the time too, that he had a different timeline of when the relationship ended, saying that they separated in 2021, but Akira's mom said they were still a couple. Now, Randy, that's a big aspect here. I mean, it's trying to prove whether or not there was real love and affection in the marriage, but you also wonder, both parties testifying, are they biased in their testimony?
Well, maybe she should be a lawyer, because that is the exact strategy you have to use. You have to prove that the marriage wasn't viable. There was it was not a real marriage. You didn't break up something because there wasn't anything to break up in that situation. The marriage was not a real marriage. The problem she has is that it's not a criminal trial where you have to get all 12 jurors. All you have to do is get a compromise verdict. And sometimes you're going to have some of the people saying yes, some of the people saying no, and the jury might say, I think 3 men, I think 0, and they compromise down to the middle, something like that. sometimes happens. So
Now, here
So just to again lay it on the line, yeah, I mean it is. Um, the defendant is absolutely correct in stating that of in order to establish no the fact that that you are not liable for what this strict liability matter, you have to show that there was no marriage. You have to show that there was no uh, that they did not live in holy matrimony. That he never proposed. He never gave her a proper ring. There was no proper ceremony. There was no weddings. There was no marriage certificate on the books. Um, and you and with that, there really was no wedding. So again, good on the defendant here to state that there was a dissolution of marriage. However, as stated, it is this there is no the standard here is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's by the preponderance of the evidence here. So all you need to do is flip one juror one juror to your side, and therefore you can receive the sum that you are suing for, or at least receive a judgment in this action. So it's not as heavy high a bar to crime, but she is fighting it in the right way. The defendant here, that is the lady in question right here. That is Sir Felicity.
Here's another part of the story that we haven't mentioned yet. Okay, so Brene was apparently staying with Akira and Tim since December of 2023, something that Akira didn't want. And although Brene claims she didn't know that Akira was uncomfortable about this, Akira's grandmother testified that she actually confronted Brene, asked her to leave the home. She claims that Brene responded saying, Akira, you better come get your grandma because I don't have a problem putting my hands on an old lady. This is, and Kennard, again, that is according to the grandmother's testimony. And apparently Tim even corroborated that there were words exchanged between the two. This is when he testified. Now, this grandmother also testified that she and Brene actually got into a pushing match. Tim denied that happening. By the way, when talking evidence, I got to mention this. Apparently there was footage that was shown to the jury, footage of Brene twerking on Tim while in a bathroom while he was married to Akira. Brene testified that she was just drunk in those clips. There was another video of Brene buying a pregnancy test after saying, I'm getting down and dirty in the sheets. There was another video where Brene apparently says, I make her very uncomfortable, so seemingly about Akira. There was reportedly a Snapchat story that was presented too, where she talked about her legal issues and said that Tim was, quote, worth it. Randy, in your opinion, how does that affect the case?
Oh boy. All right. So, we've got all the law that we've talked about and what you have to prove and picking a jury. But really what jury trials come down to, in my experience, is likability, right? You want to tell a story and you want the jury to like your side and then to figure out how can we help your side. So if this alienates the jury, if this makes the jury like or dislike one side, they're going to be more likely to bend the law or view the law as it helps their viewpoint. They want to help award damages or they want to defend the defendant and not award damages. But those are some unlikable facts. Those are the kind of things that make people say, really? You couldn't just be normal? You couldn't wait till they were divorced? You couldn't keep your hands off grandma? I mean, those are the kind of things that might hit home. There might have been someone on the jury that had an experience like that, and it just triggers something that makes them say, I don't like that person. I'm going with this side.
And from a legal
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I mean, it didn't help Brene's case. It's Brene and Akira. Thank you very much to Jesse Weber for pointing that out to me. Uh, yeah, but it did not help Brene's case. The fact that she was living with well, the married couple, in this case, at their place, and that she had a very tumultuous relationship with the bride's grandmother, and again, which nearly came to blows. So again, it's and also the fact that she twerked on the husband in these certain cases. It's a problem for him. It's a definite problem, and we are here to and so Renee has another hill to climb in the sense that she has you know she has eyes for the husband. She has highs, not only business wise, but also in a romantic setting. And she did not exactly ingratiate herself with the wife nor her grandmother. So again, it's and as counsel has said here, it is you know it's not a very high standard to break here. It is all you need do literally is turn the head of one juror to like your story and get the majority of them on your side, and that's it. That's all. And it's as it is. It's just on the preponderance of the evidence rather than a beyond a reasonable doubt. So again, it's all to play for here. And for such a considered frivolous case, this case has serious merits to it, and it's not something that you should be doing without a lawyer. To be fair, let's continue.
Point of view, it's trying to show that she deliberately interfered with the marriage, right? Now, Brené's counter argument was that she was being targeted in this lawsuit because of her social media fame, that she wasn't the reason the marriage fell apart. Brené saying to the jury in a closing argument, quote, "This was a marriage that had been falling apart for years." And that goes back to what Randy said at the beginning, trying to prove that, hey, I'm not the cause of it. Tim didn't love her. He was going to break up with her. There was things that were going on between them. I'm not the reason here. Now, it seems that the real fireworks happened in court when Brené questioned Akira on the stand. And apparently it got really tense, okay? When she questioned her, for example, about how Akira suffered a miscarriage. And Brené apparently said in court in response to that, that must have been painful for you, right? Now, the reporting from the News and Observer claims that people in the gallery actually gasped, with even a few jurors looking just shocked that she said that to Akira. And Akira reportedly responded, "Well, I wouldn't expect you to know since you don't have children." So the judge had to get involved here. Judge Timothy Wilson reportedly had to step in, said to Brené, "You don't need to express your sympathy," and told Akira, "And you don't need to make comments." At another point, when Brené questioned Akira about her blaming her for struggling in school, right, the allegation was, "Look what you did, you kind of ruined my life," Akira responded, "I take accountability for allowing an intruder into my home." Randy, that is like, obviously there's bad blood between them, and it's very awkward and unusual to have the defendant herself questioning the plaintiff, particularly the animosity between the two. What'd you make of that?
Made for TV, right? I imagine security was doubled when they said, guess who's going to be cross-examining who? Guess who's going to be, getting to ask questions. I mean, it's almost, and again, it's a dramatic over example, but it's the rapist getting to question the victim, right? It's the person who's